given by your customer, or discuss and find the vital or the rule or history or even if there's no one, so you need to assume, okay? You need to use your domain knowledge or experience at last. Also, even while you are implementing your database system, it can be revised many times by considering your application. One of the examples is this one. If you realize that some of the registration websites require separate box, okay, sometimes it's just one text box for the address. Depending on your application requirement, it can be either single attribute or it can be composite attribute. Okay, so you should be careful for that. Okay, so that is the up to relationship type. However, last one is just like the attribute of the entity. Sometimes the relationship can have the attribute. For example, if you see the work zone is the second subbullet of the third one. Third bullet, employee, and the second, the subbullet. We keep track of the number of hours per week that an employee currently works on each project. Where is the number of hours here? It's for employee. It's for project. For project, so project is the project name. But we need to keep track of, for example, the Lee works on the project 1, 10 hours. Lee works on project 2, 20 hours. Lee works on project 3 and 10 hours. It's a different per employee per project, which means we cannot keep the number of hours here, we cannot keep the number of hours here. Instead, we need to keep number of hours in the relationship. It is also possible to create the attribute. So it's the hours. So we can create the attribute for this. Okay. So then last thing, actually not last thing. So there are several more, but 5 minutes. So let me finish up to this one. Then the relationship constraint of the relationship. For example, do you remember this? So in your elementary school, the math, this is a 1-to-1 mapping, not relationship in your math class. It's a mapping, right? It's a 1-to-1 mapping, but sometimes we can have many set, element of set, map to 1, okay? Many to 1, or it can be 1 to many or many to many. We can find the same, the type of relationship. One of the example is the manager. How many employees, how many department? Manager, always one manager per one department. Not always, but in this case. So if you read carefully the description, it's a manager, a department. One manager, many departments. Is it mentioned? Each department has an employee who manages the department. It's not clearly mentioned, okay? But we roughly guess it's one manager, one department, okay? So at this time, this is called 1-to-1 type of relationship. So relationship has a different type. So this is a 1-to-1. And the one employee is a department and it's a manager 1-to-1. At this time we can specify this is called a cardinality actually. So as you mentioned, it's a cardinality. Cardinality of the relationship, one-to-one. However, what about the works for? Employee works for department. How many departments? One department. One employee works for one department. However, each department has many. So which means many employee works for one department. So in case works for many employee works for one department. Don't be confused. One employee works for many departments. No. Okay. Many employee, one department. Okay. So this is a many to one. Or one to many. Many to one to many. At that time, we can use the one to n or n to one. And what about the works on? One employee works on many projects. One to many. Also, many the many employee works on one project, and one project the many one employee works on many projects. Okay, and also many employee works on one project. By combining, it's a many to many. So this is the many to many. So in case of many to many, m to n or n to m. So there are three different types of relationship. So very simple concept actually. So one to one, one to many, many to many. So we can identify such a cardinality. One more thing, last thing. First one is cardinality. Second thing is participation. Participation means whether this is the optional or mandatory. For example, department should have the manager, right? Each department must, it's mandatory. However, all employees are manager? No, some of them are manager, the others are not, which means this participation is mandatory. In that case, we can use the double line. Otherwise, it's optional. Some of them are manager, the others are not. In case of such a set diagram, it looks like this one. So, for the department, it's a mandatory participation. However, for the employee, some of them are not manager. To represent this, we can use the double line if that is the mandatory participation. Or sometimes it's called the full participation. The mandatory or full participation. Optional is the partial. Participation is a single line, it's a double line. So, for example, project and department. Each project should have the controlling department. So this is the double line. However, what about each department controls a number of projects? Okay? It's not clear whether this is the mandatory. At that time, you can label it as the partial or optional. In case it's very clear, then you can use the double line. Okay? Because that will be used for the constraint later in the database, the D7 later. As much as possible. For example, dependent. Dependent should have the employee, otherwise it doesn't make sense. We have the dependent, but the employee, there's no employee. It doesn't make sense. However, it is possible employee may not have. So also this is the one employee has many. Okay? And you can identify as many the mandatory as possible. But it should be very clear. Okay? If you specify the manager, and all double line, it will be too much strict constraint, condition when you design the database layer. So if you are clear such a full participation, you can use the double line. Okay, so this is the ER diagram. As you can see, entity, we can identify the entity and relationship. Okay, most of them I explained except the weak entity. That will be the next class. And one more thing is, somebody may be curious, how do I name all of this? Name. Is it possible to use the D instead of the department, dependent, or is it possible just the P for the project?
It is. It's just like it's very
It is
difficult.
possible, but it's not recommended. Most of project manager has the naming group, and also for the conceptual design, it is strongly recommended to use the meaningful name. And another problem is the name of the department, name of project. It is okay in the conceptual modeling, okay? However, in the database design, we will apply the little bit strict, the naming rule. But as long as we can understand the meaning of that, the attribute or the name, it's okay. Usually we use capital letter for the entity. It's not the rule, but usually just most of the case. So that we can have such a ER diagram. Homework. By next class, except up to this one, please follow the step by step using any scratch paper, not the computer, the design or any other software, just using pen and pencil or with your scratch paper, draw the ER diagram of the company database by yourself. Do not copy just a handwritten submission, just one page with the name and ID, and submit before the class begins. Also, next class, bring your laptop, and also we will have the quiz because we do not have the time. So there is a clock over there and everything. So our class will move to the Mandabil 104 from the next class. So we will not use this class. Okay, any question? Yes. Thank you. Yes. Can you? Oh, really? He was here in the last class. Yeah, I will introduce. I will explain the combined the next class. Okay, thank you.